Let's talk to our buddy Joe DeLeone here, shall we? The host of the Rufino and Joe Show and the Hack City Pod. You hit him up on Twitter at Joe DeLeone. Before we get into the questions, Joe, you nailed it, man. You were on Miami. They covered in the Natty. Wasn't pretty, but they got it done. So kudos to you, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. Obviously feeling pretty good that I nailed that prediction. I've been pushing it the entire time leading up to the game. I felt pretty vindicated. It came to fruition to the way that we previewed it on Rufino and Joe. I'm excited about that, but also a little bit depressed that now we have to go this long period of time with no college football.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, miserable. By the way, if you're watching us live on YouTube, watching us live on Twitter, Joe is wearing a disgusting hat. And I say disgusting as an Islanders fan because it's a Devils hat. That being said, it is an incredibly sick design. I got to admit, I love it as much as I hate the Devils.
Wait, where are you from? Are you
Central
from
Jersey?
Long Island?
Central New Jersey. Yeah, I know. Just
okay,
don't worry,
dude. Okay, all right. I'll let you be. It doesn't make any sense, but I'll let you be.
Look, I wasn't. My dad was a big Rangers fan growing up. I had a couple of friends in school, and I was like 10, 11 years old, and I started to get into hockey, and I hated the Rangers. So when the Islanders drafted John Tavares, I was like, I clung to them. They were so terrible, but I was like, hey, maybe they'll be good in a couple of years. So,
well, they've been good for a couple of. They never clicked for you. Devils never clicked for you.
No, I don't know why. The Stanley Cup in 2003, you would think that would have been a perfect excuse for me. But anyway, speaking of another team that you and I can both agree on, the New York Football Giants, Joe, they got their guy. John Harbaugh, new head coach for Big Blue. It's confirmed he's going to report to ownership rather than Joe Schoen. Good. Now, when it comes to the missing puzzle piece, the OC who's going to run the offense and maximize Jackson Dart, Neighbors, Scattaboo, and that offense. Are you hoping Todd Monken comes along? He's still interviewing for some head coaching positions, but that's kind of the belief, is that Todd Monken's going to rejoin John Harbaugh, be the OC of the Giants, or would you rather it be somebody else?
No, I'm really in love with the idea of it being Todd Monken. I think that it is a perfect pairing for what Jackson Dart is going to need in year two. We saw a guy this past year with Dart who had a lot of the tools to be successful, very unique athlete in the way that he runs, a little too aggressive. I know that's a whole separate issue that we can unpack at a later date, but having a coach who was really successful at Georgia and then really successful working with Lamar Jackson's skill set as a mobile player, I think that those college principles could leak into helping Jackson Dart really hit the ground running in 2026. To me, there's really no other candidate out there that I would be as excited about. And I think that Giants fans shouldn't think that, the Ravens were disappointing this year. Todd Monken maybe had something to do with it. They were incredibly banged up. And I think that Monken has proven he has what it takes to be a premier play caller in the NFL. And Dart could plug right into that system and end up producing right away.
Yeah, Dart's got a monster here, man. I truly believe it. Joe, let's talk about Indiana's Curt Cignetti, who hopefully had more than just one beer after winning the national championship. And you look at IU, they've already reloaded via transfer portal, grabbing former TCU quarterback and Josh Hoover and former K-State defensive end and Toby Asunsanmi. The Hoosiers opened with the fifth best odds to win back-to-back championships. Do you see this program continuing to contend? Can they do it again?
I don't think that they're going to win a national title in 2026, but I do really believe that they will be a Final Four team once again. There's still a little bit of a gray area of which guys are going to declare for the upcoming draft. They've got a lot of players that were really key pieces that do have eligibility remaining. D'Angelo Pons, Amari Farrell are two guys, Carter Smith on their offensive line, Omar Cooper Jr. as well. Those guys have eligibility, and they are likely not going to be first-round picks. So maybe Cignetti, with the buy-in that he's had from his team, could convince those guys to return. But there is a really strong nucleus coming back, I think, with this team. And the thing that I'm really excited about is Surratt leaving and then replacing him with a guy who's equally as talented with Nick Marsh coming in from Michigan State. The biggest reason, though, for my overall optimism for the Hoosiers next year, I'm a big Josh Hoover fan. I was really, really excited about Josh Hoover coming into the 2025 season for TCU. Had a couple of really great games, cooled off a bit, but he has the skill set of a premier quarterback, not only in college football, but to go on to be a first-round pick. Just like I was calling my shot last offseason on Fernando Mendoza. Not that I'm saying Hoover will be the first overall pick, because he's got a lot deeper competition in his class. I do think that Hoover could work himself into the first round if things go well in an offense that is very, very quarterback friendly.
Keep the party raging there in Bloomington, says Joe DeLeone. Joe, this is obviously a little cart before the horse, considering rosters are still trying to be figured out right now in college. But based on the transfer portal acquisitions, which team or teams do you feel have made the biggest and most disruptive moves?
Yeah, I think that two teams that immediately come to mind for that, I think that Texas and Ohio State made a lot of the right moves. Now, I know that there's other teams that are ranked really highly in many of these transfer portal rankings, but I look at Texas going and getting Cam Coleman, and then also double dipping at running back, stealing away Hollywood Smothers and bringing in Raleek Brown. The most enticing aspect of this, though, is Cam Coleman, who could be a top 2 receiver behind Jeremiah Smith if he actually had somebody to throw him the ball. Last year, it was depressing watching, sorry, Jackson Arnold, to take the shot at you, but him try to get him the football. And when the ball came his way, Cam Coleman made some ridiculous plays. Pairing him with Arch Manning is going to produce a ridiculous offense this upcoming season for the Longhorns. And then Ohio State, for me, they had a really slow transfer portal period, but I'm really excited by the additions of Qua Russaw as well as James Smith. I think that the defensive line, despite putting out Arvell Reese and Caden McDonald, is going to be really, really strong. Actually, just to throw one more team in there, my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, got to give them a shout out because they were really in a tough spot after they were not able to get Nick Marsh. It felt like it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to land it, but they instead pivot. They go and get a former 5-star in Quincy Porter. They also ended up doing a great job on defense with Brew, the defensive tackle from Pitt that they brought in. And also, I think that DJ McKinney is a really intriguing corner that allows for them to get creative with how they're going to deploy their secondary. So Notre Dame really should be brought up as a team that's gearing up for a national championship run in 2026, along with Ohio State and Texas.
That's right, baby. Screw Ohio State. Screw Texas. It's all about the Irish, Joe. Hey, we got two teams that we can agree on. Hockey, maybe not so much. Giants, Notre Dame, bang. We're talking to Joe DeLeone, host of the Ruffino and Joe Show and Hack City Pod, and all that stuff's coming straight off the dome, by the way, that he's talking about. Transfer portal, breaking it all down. Nobody better. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Joe DeLeone. Here with us on BetMGM tonight, Westwood One Sports. He's Brad Evans, I'm Pat Boyle. Joe, you're already locked into the draft. Is David Bailey unquestionably the number one edge rusher coming off the board? Or did Reuben Bain from Miami drop enough jaws with what he did in the playoff to perhaps push over Bailey and get taken in the top 5?
So for me, Bailey is my top edge prospect, but I think that it doesn't take away from Reuben Bain. For Bailey's sake, he is an unbelievable athlete, and his jump from when he was at Stanford in 2024 to what he did this year at Texas Tech really plays to what his potential is. I think that this is a kid who's still learning how to use his body, that's got great length, really just fantastic burst. He's just a menace when he's closing down on quarterbacks and ball carriers. I think you give him some more time to refine things, and he could become a 10-plus sack guy in the NFL. But the thing with Reuben Bain, the discussion has more to do with where he plays in the NFL. I personally am in the camp that I think Reuben Bain could become a top 3 Tech defensive tackle in the NFL. I would much rather ask him to bulk up a little bit, be kind of like Kalijah Kancey from Pitt, except he has a much higher ceiling than Kalijah Kancey. I think he's much stronger than Kalijah Kancey. I think he's almost equally as quick as him. I don't think that it is a detraction. I don't think it's a negative thing to say if we move him to a different position, he can be even more problematic for opposing offensive lines to have to figure out how to deal with. I'm not saying he's the next Aaron Donald, but Aaron Donald was getting paid pass rusher money when he was at the top of his game. If Reuben Bain and Miami fans who are very supportive of him, if they believe he can be as good as they're projecting, I think that it's a no-brainer to put him in the best position to cause problems. And the last part with this is if you go look at his film, there's a lot of times where he makes some pretty big plays when he was playing in that 3-tech spot when they were moving him around. But I think both players are great. I would give the edge one spot to David Bailey.
Good stuff there. Joe, Miami's Carson Beck's draft value likely increased during the Canes playoff run. What's the 23-year-old's draft stock, in your opinion? In the right situation, could he be an instant impact passer at the next level?
I don't think instant impact. I think that we saw some of the limitations in the national championship game with his arm. I think part of that comes with the recovery from the UCL. That interception that he threw, it was the right choice, but I don't think he realized he didn't have the juice to attack that window. Here's the thing with Carson Beck. I don't see a starter in the NFL. I see a guy that is going to be a top-of-the-line backup quarterback who could eventually maybe become a spot starter. Maybe somebody eventually gives him a big contract to be their starter in free agency or as a bridge guy. There are just a lot of things on the table for Carson Beck for the play that he put on during the college football playoff. It doesn't really necessarily wow you. It is not that of the traits of a player that is going to go on to be an elite quarterback. But I feel as though he showed that within the confines of an offense, he can be somebody who keeps an offense on schedule. He can do just enough with everything around him to keep everything flowing if a starter went down. I think that Beck has a very long future ahead of him to be a great, great backup in this league. And I do think with this really bad quarterback class, and naturally you have NFL teams are going to be attracted to, the winner status and the way that he finished the year and doing it in a premier big game. I think that's definitely going to help his draft stock to maybe go in a similar range to where Dylan Gabriel did last year at the end of the third round.
Talking with Joe DeLeone here for about another 2 minutes or so, host of the Ruffino and Joe Show. Make sure you check that out. Check out the other podcast he does, Hack City. Follow him on Twitter at Joe DeLeone. Joe, here we go again. Another transfer portal and NIL disagreement between school and player. This time it's Duke QB Darian Mensah, who's basically trying to do the same thing DeMond Williams tried to do for Washington. He agreed to an NIL deal with Duke, said he was returning as their QB. Now he's trying to enter the transfer portal. Duke's fighting back, and Duke was granted a temporary restraining order so that he does not violate the contract they reportedly agreed to. If Mensah enters the portal, he'll be the number 1 ranked QB and is already being linked to Miami to replace Carson Beck if it happens. Do you think this plays out the same way it did with Washington's DeMond Williams? And what do you think should happen?
I don't think it's going to, because I think that Miami has very aggressively inserted themselves into the situation with the intention of getting him. If you look at their quarterback room, they don't have anybody. They need a quarterback, and they need to figure this out now. Otherwise, 2026 could be a lost year for the Hurricanes. I also don't think it's going to happen because the same way as the DeMond Williams situation, because it felt like there was almost a lot of guilt attached to that decision to try and leave for DeMond Williams. I think that Mensah realized the opportunity that was ahead for him, as well as the money that was being put on the table. This all comes down to, can some sort of a negotiation happen with a buyout? The contract that he signed did not have a buyout. So him getting out of this deal comes down to Duke agreeing to do so. I don't know if this is maybe some sort of, I am not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a lawyer. I don't know if this lawsuit is a way to formally get money out of Mensah and to make sure that he is willing to pay a large sum and probably match the deal to $4 million. It feels like that's the direction that we're trending, that eventually Miami steps up and goes and gets their guy.
It's ugly, and I thought maybe the DeMond Williams thing would prevent further future stuff like this from happening, but I guess not. Joe, appreciate the time, brother. Enjoy the rest of the week, and can't wait to chop it up with you next Wednesday.
Of course. Thanks, guys.